Some things buried should never be disturbed. Deep beneath Pripyat, the whispers of the dead still echo, waiting for someone to listen. Welcome back to Tales Nameless, the home of spine-chilling true horror stories. If you crave terrifying tales like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single haunting episode. Brace yourself. The buried never forget, and the whispers never stop. The entrance was hidden behind a collapsed maintenance shack near Reactor 3. Overgrown with weeds and sealed with a rusted manhole cover, it had likely been untouched since 1986. The metal groaned as Anton and I heaved it open. What we found below wasn't just a utility tunnel. It was a vault of silence. We descended carefully, the air growing colder, thick with the smell of wet concrete and something metallic. My Geiger counter ticked faster with each step. Moisture dripped from overhead pipes like the bunker itself was sweating. Katya was hesitant. "This isn't on any official map," she said. This wasn't meant to be found." Inside, the walls bore fading Cyrillic warnings. "Authorized personnel only." One corridor had collapsed entirely, but the main shaft continued deeper. Every few meters, broken radiation suits and old boots littered the floor. No bodies, just fragments. We passed a door partially caved in. Behind it, something scratched faintly, not scurrying, deliberate, slow. We moved on, hoping it was just debris settling, though we knew better. And then, from the blackness ahead, came a whisper. "Ty słyszysz nas? Do you hear us?" We froze. The air went still. That was no echo. Behind us, the Geiger counter's clicks spiked rapidly, then went silent, as if the radiation itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, a low vibration ran through the ground, not mechanical, not seismic. It felt organic, as though something massive had shifted beneath our feet. The deeper we went, the stranger it became. Pipes overhead pulsed faintly, like arteries under skin. One wall appeared scorched, as if licked by fire from inside. Katya brushed dust off an old warning sign that read, "Do not disturb below level 3." The implication haunted us. How deep did this place really go? And why was it built like a crypt rather than a utility line? Anton paused beside a rusted inspection panel and wiped off years of grime. Beneath the glass, a schematic showed levels we couldn't see on our map. Sub-basements descending far below the reactor line, labeled with codes like Sub-V and Bio-Isolate. Katya snapped a photo. "We're in something much older than the reactor complex," she murmured. "This might date back to the Cold War, or something worse." We reached a thick steel door, one that clearly hadn't been opened in decades. Welded edges. A date etched into the rust. 26th of April, 1986. The day of the disaster. Anton found a breach at the hinge. I crouched, flashlight in hand, and peered through. Inside was a narrow tiled room, filing cabinets, yellowed papers, and the edge of something larger. A metal examination table? A gurney? I couldn't tell. Katya whispered, "Why would a medical room be under here?" We forced the door open just enough to squeeze through. Inside, a faded Soviet flag clung to the wall. On the table lay a body, no, a shape under tarp, mummified by time. Around it, old radiation dosimeters and notebooks written in hurried Russian. One read, "Specimen 17. Cognitive signals continue. No decay detected. Maintain seal." Anton's voice cracked. They were doing experiments. On the far wall, diagrams showed neural scans and blood work of workers exposed to extreme radiation. But the final notes were redacted, entire paragraphs blacked out with thick pen strokes. As we scanned the room, the overhead bulb, somehow still intact, flickered. Then it lit. The Geiger counter screamed. The tarp moved, just slightly, a twitch, like breath. Katya backed up. It's not possible. We turned and saw movement behind the frosted glass of the second chamber. A silhouette, not approaching, just watching. And again, the whisper, "Ty našel nás." You found us. Then the door behind us closed, not slammed, slowly, deliberately. From beneath the tarp, a thick black fluid began to leak across the tiles, crawling like veins toward our boots. I stepped back, nearly slipping. The fluid was thicker than water, more like oil, and it hissed when it touched exposed concrete. Anton grabbed a steel tray and tried to scoop some up, but it slid away like it was alive. We stared in disbelief as it coiled along the floor, moving against gravity toward the frosted window. Suddenly, the intercom crackled above. A recording began to loop. In Russian, a voice repeated, "Return to containment. Biological breach. Level Omega." Each word stabbed at the silence. Whatever was sealed in here, it wasn't dead. Not exactly. Then came the sound of scraping. Behind the frosted glass, the silhouette moved again, not walking, but gliding. The shape distorted, tall and too thin, its arms too long. Katya turned to run, but the door was now sealed, locked from the outside. We were in something's tomb, or its cage. We bolted. The room behind us didn't explode into chaos. It fell silent, the kind of silence that feels deliberate, like something is listening, the kind that dares you to speak first. We moved quickly, retracing our steps into the main tunnel, but something had changed. The air was heavier, metallic, the Geiger counter now silent despite the increased sense of radiation. Katya looked down and muttered, "It's like it doesn't want us to measure it anymore." Anton stopped at a junction that hadn't been there before. The wall had shifted, or maybe always had a false panel we missed. Whatever the case, the new path sloped downward at a sharp angle, marked only by a broken sign, Sublevel 5B, restricted. We hesitated, but the stairwell behind us had sealed completely. A mechanical whine followed by a click that echoed like a gunshot. We were being funneled, herded. We entered the new corridor, the metal floor sticky underfoot. This wasn't a maintenance route. It was reinforced, armored, more like something you'd find in a military facility. Power conduits ran along the ceiling, humming faintly. Emergency lights flickered to life as we passed. The first door we encountered had no handle, just a slot for a keycard long lost to time. Anton tapped the panel beside it, and surprisingly, it clicked open, not from his touch, but something inside triggering the lock. Inside was a small observation bay, its glass shattered. Bloodstains, old and dry, ran down the wall in thin lines, not sprayed like a struggle, but leaked slowly, like tears. On the far side, another corridor. A camera mounted in the corner rotated to follow us. "That's running on backup," Anton whispered. "Somebody, or something, is still watching." The next door opened before we touched it. This time, the chamber beyond was different. Rows of containment tanks lined the walls, each one empty, except for one. Inside, floating in a thick amber fluid, was a shape, human in form, emaciated. Its skin bubbled and scarred, its mouth open as if mid-scream. tubes fed into its arms, chest, and skull. The eyes were open, and it blinked. Katya screamed. I stumbled back and slammed into the doorframe. The Geiger counter reactivated, spiking wildly. The room temperature dropped instantly. Condensation burst across the tank glass like frostbite. Then a siren blared from somewhere above. Biohazard breach. Initiate containment. A countdown began. 30 seconds. The lights turned red. All doors behind us slammed shut. We didn't wait to see what would come out of the tank. We ran. Down a final hall, narrower than before. A draft hit us from up ahead, cold air, not recycled. An exit? A vent? We turned a final corner and froze. The hallway opened into a split-level catwalk overlooking a deep pit filled with broken machines, cages, and what looked like bones. Human bones, bleached white under years of flickering halogen. Some were scorched, others were chewed. And at the center of the pit, a lift. It was on, waiting, and beside it, a keypad blinking green. Anton didn't ask questions. He ran for the lift and punched the button. The platform began to rise. As we followed, the whisper returned, louder this time, layered with a chorus of voices. You heard us. You woke us. You carry us now. The catwalk lights blew out one by one behind us. The lift doors opened. We didn't look back, and we never spoke of sub-level 5B again. But I still hear them, late at night, in static, in dreams. We backed away from the sealed chamber, breath shallow, boots sloshing through shallow puddles laced with black fluid. Every surface in the corridor now seemed to sweat that same tar-like substance. It oozed from the corners of the floor, clung to rusted bolts, and smeared the tiles like a spreading infection. There has to be another exit, I said, voice low. The Geiger counter buzzed erratically, jumping in short, violent bursts before cutting to eerie silence again. It was like something in the walls disrupted its rhythm. Anton led the way around a bend, down a sloping corridor lined with decaying signage. One barely legible placard read, Sub-Level 3, Testing, Storage. The paint half dissolved from decades of chemical exposure. We passed rooms that had once held purpose, labs gutted of equipment, lockers torn open, desks upturned. What disturbed me most wasn't what we saw, but what we didn't. No bones, no remains, just the imprint of absence, like people had been removed without struggle or warning. Then we heard it, a dragging sound from above, not boots or footsteps, more like something large and wet being pulled through a narrow shaft. A ventilation duct? Katya gripped my arm tightly. Her eyes weren't just afraid now. They were calculating. She was preparing to run. We rounded the next corner and found a staircase. The steps were metal, rusted and swaying slightly. Upward was collapsed. A cave-in of rebar and concrete blocked the ascent. Downward, pitch black. We have no choice, I said. Anton hesitated, then clicked on his backup flashlight. The beam flickered but held. As we descended, the air thickened. Not just humidity, pressure. It felt like diving underwater. Our ears popped. My breathing grew labored. Halfway down, the wall markings changed. Gone were Cyrillic warnings. Instead, we saw symbols, triangular glyphs, circles with lines through them, a spiral. Katya touched one and recoiled. This wasn't made by any Soviet unit. This is different. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a circular chamber. At its center, a reinforced glass tube extended from floor to ceiling. Inside floated a figure. No clothes, no eyes, skin pale and hairless. Electrodes were still attached to its scalp. Then its hand twitched. Before we could react, the room shuddered. A klaxon blared, red lights spinning. Across the far wall, a hydraulic hatch slammed shut. The intercom crackled again. This time, the voice was clearer. Human. You should not be here. Return to the surface. Seal this place. Then silence, followed by that sound again. The dragging, now much closer. Anton looked at us. It knows we're here. We didn't wait. We turned toward the one corridor left open. It sloped sharply, too smooth to be designed for foot traffic. My boots slipped more than once. The deeper we went, the louder the whispering became. Not from our surroundings, but from inside our own ears. They weren't voices speaking to us. They were remembering aloud. We had entered the buried archive of something that was never meant to be remembered. We ran through the last corridor, the walls narrowing, the ceiling dropping. A rusted hatch loomed ahead, our exit. As we approached, the whispering surged, a voice screaming directly into my head. Stay! 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 I reached for the latch. It was wet. I pulled. Above us, moonlight. A ladder. Katya went first, then Anton. I looked back one last time and saw a hand reach from the shadows. It wasn't trying to grab me. It was waving. I climbed. We emerged into the cold night, silent. No wind, no birds. The hatch slammed shut on its own. We never found it again. But the whispers followed. Now, when the world goes quiet, truly quiet, I hear them breathing just behind the silence. But something wasn't right. The Geiger counter I carried was fried, its glass cracked, needle jammed to the far edge of red. We tried radioing our contact. No signal, no static either. Just silence. Anton stood stiff, staring back at the sealed hatch. Katya clutched her notebook to her chest like it could ward off whatever we'd brought back with us. We made it back to the outpost by dawn. The technician who greeted us looked like he'd seen ghosts. When we asked why, he pointed to the monitors. The live thermal feed from beneath Pripyat had gone dark. Every sensor offline at the exact moment the hatch slammed shut. All except one. It showed a heat signature slowly moving just beneath the ground, pacing directly below our outpost. We left Pripyat that night, but weeks later, a sealed package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, the notebook Katya had lost in the tunnels. Open to the page with the diagram labeled Specimen 17. And one more item. A photo of us standing at the hatch, taken from the inside. If this episode left you breathless, hit that like button, subscribe to Tales Nameless, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single terrifying tale. Share this video with your fellow horror enthusiasts and let us know in the comments if you would dare to return to the Red Forest. In our next episode, we'll push even deeper into the heart of Chernobyl, where the real nightmares lie waiting. Until then, stay in the light, if you can.